Lap battle here, a pivotal Grand Prix of Motegi coming up next in Motogp. It's lights out and we are racing in Motogp here in Japan. It's a great start from that second place on the grid for Pecco. He's going to get the whole shot ahead of Pedro Acosta as he once again. No, Acosta wipes the nose of the world champion as they grab the front brakes into the first corner. Vinales gets a tap there, I think, from Frankie Morbidelli or Jorge Martin. Brad Binder's got away well from fifth place on the grid. He's third, but it once again is Bagnaia who gets the lead early on here, just as he did in the sprint yesterday.
And just as he did in the sprint yesterday, Marc Marquez has made big progress. That's Frankie Morbidelli being sent off the racetrack by the 93 at turn 3. He's already up into the top 6. Martin hasn't made the same progress. He's come to the first sector. In fact, he is now up into 6th place thanks to his teammates off.
Yeah, going with Marquez then is the 89 of Jorge Martin. Pedro Acosta did not wait too long to strike and attack Bagnaia yesterday in that sprint. His move came early on at turn 5. Through turn 7 he goes for the third time. This is where he dumped it out of the lead late on in the sprint yesterday.
Brad Binder has got away well. He's in third, right behind Acosta. It was pretty early in the sprint yesterday that Acosta made his move. Binder nearly ran into the back of him there, and that's going to allow Bastianini through.
Almost let Marquez through as well. Binder gets squeezed off onto the green paintwork coming out turn 9. Martin launching a raid on the inside of Marc Marquez into turn 10. He's got the inside line on Bastianini as well there. Martin in a Marquez beat sandwich now as they power out of turn 10. This has been an awesome first lap for the World Championship leader, 11th to 4th.
And Binder, that's Miller actually now coming through on Marc Marquez. Jack Miller came from 14th on the grid, and he's now up into the top 6. What a start for the Aussie.
Yeah, Marquez and Bastianini getting a right experience of poor old Joan Mir, who's just having a terrible time, isn't he, right now at HRC, down and out of the Grand Prix, just as he was in the sprint yesterday.
Well, as you said a moment ago, Pedro Acosta did not wait long yesterday. I don't think he's going to want to try and sit behind Bagnaia too long in this one either. Of course, what is going to be key through this race is front tyre temperature and front tyre pressure. It is a kind of circuit that your front tyre takes an absolute pounding with all the heavy braking zones, so I don't think Pedro Acosta will want to just sit on the rear tyre of Pecco Bagnaia for too long if he can help it.
For me, a Marquez incident is currently under investigation. We haven't yet seen a replay of what happened there between the two Spaniards, two former Moto3 world champions. Of course, the bumping and barging that involved Bastianini and Marquez in that first lap, they were seconds slower.
Oh, it's Marquez into the back of Joan Mir there. Look, Joan Mir's wearing that Grossini Ducati on his Repsol Honda. He's not actually crashed there until the very end, but he had to stop because he had a Grossini Ducati weighing his rear tyre down. Never
rains, it pours, doesn't it? Poor old Joan Mir, nothing that he could do about that, it looked like, from the external camera, as Jack Miller, 2022 Japanese Grand Prix winners, had a real strong start to the 2024 edition of the Japanese Grand Prix. He's got Marquez and Bastianini behind him. Bagnaia, 144.819 is just the fastest lap of the race so far. Not too far behind him was Acosta.
Yeah, matching each other for lap times. Binder there a little bit wide, although you can take that line through turn 1 to gives you the best look at turn 2. But if Jorge Martin has any hopes of winning this race, he can't sit behind that KTM for long. Is he going to have a little bit of a look here once again, as Brad Binder prefers that wider line to give himself the best slingshot out of 4. Already at this stage, Binder is just under a second off the race lead, and expect that to grow with the pace that Bagnaia and Acosta are setting.
Yeah, so Bagnaia has been at the front of this Grand Prix longer than when he was at the front of the sprint yesterday. So far, not even a sniff. He's given Acosta in second place. Marquez working his way back through on the fast-starting Aussie Miller. That's lovely on that change of direction. Set it up going through the 4th gear, turn 6. Hugged the inside line going through turn 7. Marquez then back into P5.
Lost Lorenzo Savadori already, the replacement for the Trackhouse team in for the injured Miguel Oliveira. He pitted at the end of that second lap. Savadori, it would appear, also out of the race.
Sideways into the 1st gear, turn 10 goes Acosta. Now Bastianini with a bit of a desperate lunge on the inside of Miller. One of the hardest riders to overtake, one of the hardest bikes to overtake in MotoGP these days is Miller and that KTM. That's why Bastianini is so eager to get on with this.
Jack Miller just braking as late as he dares. Bastianini wasn't exactly shy on the brakes there, but no way through on the KTM. And with Marquez now up the road and clearing off, having got past the Australian, Bastianini knows he's got to do the same quickly if his hopes of a podium finish aren't going to slip away early on. Who's that down?
Somebody's gone down. Oh, Acosta! I thought I heard in my headset some scraping noise. And Pedro Acosta then, second time in 24 hours, The shark stumbles, the shark spills out of contention. Acosta then, here he goes, through the victory corner, and there'll be no victory, no maiden success for Pedro Acosta as he tucks the front on the inside of turn 14. Once again, it's head in hands for Acosta, head in hands for Red Bull Gas Tech 3, and that, of course, now has pushed Jorge Martin up into second place. He started his Grand Prix in the middle of that fourth row in 11th. It's taken him 3.5 laps to get himself up into P2.
Well, boy, is that taking the wind out of the sails from a KTM point of view. Acosta out of the race, and in that same moment you saw Brad Binder going wide at the very same corner, and Martin took advantage, through into second place. Bagnaya's lead is 1.4 seconds from Jorge Martin, Binder and Marc Marquez. And you can see how much he was delayed there. Bastianini trying to get past Jack Miller. He's lost the thick end of a second up to Marquez ahead of him.
For Acosta, he's had the speed for a double victory. He's had the speed, the pace, the potential for the treble. He completed a third of it with a sensational pole yesterday morning, but he has crashed out of the lead in the sprint and now crashed out of second place in the main Grand Prix. Heartache for the Spaniard.
So it's a bit of a bittersweet moment, I guess, for Pecco Bagnaia. His lead is now a much more comfortable one, but his chief championship rival is now the rider immediately behind him in the race, and this might well have been the best case scenario that Jorge Martin could have envisaged coming into this Grand Prix, particularly at such an early stage of it, to be only 5 points potentially behind Bagnaia at the end of this race, or losing 5 points. That would keep him 10 ahead. Bagnaia's lead is now 1.5 seconds, a 1:44.519. He's now 1.5 ahead of Martin, who did a personal best himself last time around.
And that was Acosta just sweeping through the picture at turn 3. He has rejoined this Grand Prix. You never know what happened. We could get some rain here in Motegi. You don't see too many front-end washouts going through that final corner. Did he just clip the curb on the inside, maybe? It's coming from a long way back is Marc Marquez with the classic block pass there on Brad Binder down into turn 5. Bagnaia, without any immediate pressure behind him now with Acosta down and out, has found a 1:44.519. That's the fastest lap of this Grand Prix so far, and that has seen him establish a lead now that has stretched out to over 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, only Bagnaia, Martin and Marc Marquez are lapping in the 1:44s. Binder did a 45.3 last time around, losing thick end of 9/10 of a second to the race leader up ahead of him, and you can see already the distance. That blue and red Ducati of Marc Marquez is pulling further and further away from us, and Binder looked a little bit wide there through turn number 10. Here's another look then at what happened at the start. Once again, Marc Marquez just making this first couple of corners look like he's riding the video game on easy mode.
Yeah, and Jorge Martin followed him through as well. This is Maverick Vinales, who started on the front row of the grid and just went backwards once again. The aero slicing in there into the back of Marc Marquez. This is looking back to Vinales, who himself had to pick up as Frankie Morbidelli got on the...
He was actually quicker than Bagnaia last time round, but Bastianini's got to claw himself up onto the tail of Brad Binder and then pass the leading KTM, and hopefully from his point of view pass him a lot quicker than he passed the previous one.
Well, Jorge Martin has had 18 Grand Prix victories, 80 Motogp. If he was to win this Japanese Grand Prix from the fourth row, make no mistake, this will be the biggest and best win of his Grand Prix career. He starts the chase, he starts then to hunt down Bagnaia. It has stabilised, having taken 4/10 out of the Italian on the previous lap. It's just holding around that 1.1 second buffer, although Marc Marquez is struggling to go with Martin. Already halfway around this lap 7. Martin has found half a second on Marc Marquez in third place.
Yeah, I do wonder whether Marquez made some sort of mistake in that second sector, because he's reversed back towards Brad Binder. You can see them now at the top of the screen. Binder took 3/10 himself out of Marc Marquez, so I think it was more an issue for Marquez than Martin upping his pace, because, as you say, the gap isn't really changing too much between himself and Bagnaia. We've seen Bagnaia in this position so many times over the course of 2024. 7 Sunday wins already. Generally, if a rider threatens to close the gap on him, he tends to step on the pace again. The gap is now under 1 second, and that will be brought to the attention of the reigning world champion.
Is Bagnaia just slacking off ever so slightly, just holding a steady but fast pace, wary of the tyre drop that will come late on in this Grand Prix. Just out of shot then goes the World Championship leader. I think just ahead of them on the road there is Pedro Acosta, isn't it? On the 31 bike, who is, sadly, for us neutrals, out of contention in this battle. Further down, then we've got Miller 6. He's having a good fight at the moment with Morbidelli. Top 10 to Bezzecchi, Aleix Espargaro. Fabio de Gianantonio has just picked off Vinales for that 10th place. Another disastrous start and first that for Vinales, who plummets from the front row out of the top 10 once again. Quartararo 12th, leading the Japanese charge. Yellow flags out in the second sector. Can't see anybody's now. It's Augusto Fernandez who's taken a tumble. So Tech 3 Gas's day gets even worse. They've still got Acosta running in this Grand Prix, but he's already crashed out of second at the final corner, and now Augusto Fernandez joins him in the gravel.
So Brad Binder, the leading KTM in this race, as he again favours that line into turn 10. It's all about squaring the corner off and just firing it out on the exit and trying to leave that Ducati in your dust. Bastianini not close enough at this stage, and Brad Binder currently 3 seconds off the race lead, doing 145s. The top two are doing 44s, and Bastianini can see a potential podium disappearing away from him.
Yeah, he got in hot there as well, Bastianini. Looking back from Binder, you could see he was snaking that factory Ducati left to right as he grabbed a handful of brake down to 90-degree corner, decelerating well over 200 kilometers an hour from 6th down to second gear. Just lost a bit of momentum on the exit, compromises exit speed. There is a Binder then now, hard on the power out of turn 2, one of the several vicious acceleration points here in Motegi. The advantage between Bagnaia, or the gap between Bagnaia and Martin to start lap 8 with 24. Third race distance about to be completed was just under 9/10.
And the top two have now lapped Pedro Acosta, who wisely there having a good look behind just to stay well out of the way at this battle at the front. He doesn't want to get involved when he's essentially out of contention. He just slots in behind Enea Bastianini, and I guess he might now be having a look at what he could have won this afternoon. He's staring at the leading group, which he was in before he crashed earlier on.
I was going to say a double DNF, but he is circulating. But I think yesterday nobody could have seen Pedro Acosta crashing out of the lead in the sprint and then dumping it out of second place in the Grand Prix. Tough lessons to be learned for the rookie. Life sometimes can be tough at the top, and he has found out Acosta to his cost so far this weekend. Yesterday, Lewis, he said the sprint really hurt, it really stung him. Well, better as well.
Now, I mean, we'll only know, I guess, later on when we hear from him just how hard he was pushing to try and match the early pace of Pecco Bagnaia. Was he ultimately just pushing a little bit too hard to stay with the world champion? Only Pedro Acosta can truly answer that. It's immaterial now because he's out essentially of contention in this race. He's running around in 19. He might still score points if some drop out ahead of him, but that will be no consolation.
Bastianini really does get that factory Ducati fishtailing around on the brakes into that turn 11. It's the most ferocious braking zone around this Motegi circuit. It's coming the move on Binder, isn't it, to try and get himself up into 4th place. The problem is, once again, it's Bastianini paying and suffering, not for an average start, but just not on the money like the competition around him. He's let Bagnaia and Martin get away by nearly 5 seconds now.
Yeah, I think the horse is bolted in terms of certainly winning this Grand Prix for Enea Bastianini, but the podium slipping away, as I mentioned earlier on. Marc Marquez now in clear air is able to do 45.0s. Bastianini up behind Binder is doing 45.6s. He's trying to distract the South African now, trying to force some sort of mistake, because at the moment he's getting no change out of the KTM.
Yeah, I mean, Binder and that KTM, we know how good the RC16 stops here around the hard braking zones in Motegi. Binder and Miller are a couple of the real late breakers in Motogp, so this is a real problem here. This is costing Bastianini at the podium. Trying to find a way through now on the inside at turn 9. He's going to run in hot though. This is desperate, isn't it, from the beast. Look at the movement he has on the rear tyre, as well as he just tried to squeeze the power on, tried to get the drive to make sure that he didn't lose that place to Binder, but there was nothing he could do. He's going to be getting a bit frustrated here now, isn't he, the Italian?
The beast might boil over very, very soon if this continues. This is the battle for the lead, and Jorge Martin is just chipping away at this. It was 9/10 of a second when the lap began. It's now down to 7.5 tenths of a second. Bagnaia won't be panicking just yet at this stage. You get the feeling that Bagnaia is just keeping that lead at a sort of margin that he's happy with and making sure that he has some rear tyre left in this race. Every rider in the field is on the medium rear tyre. Our information, with the exception of Taka Nakagami, race direction is waving the white flag. Riders are now allowed to stop bikes. Has someone told them it's raining out there?
Wow. Well, this could be a game changer. Looking at our Comedy Watch window to see if any of the fans are going for the ponchos or the rain jackets. It is getting a little bit grey overhead. Simon, down to you in pit lane.
No, just letting you know there's no raindrops in pit lane.
Thanks very much, Simon. We're going to keep a very close eye skyward. And Bastianini then finally has found a way through on Brad Binder. It's taken him, what, 9 laps to find his way through on the number 33. In pit lane in our ears, we can hear there are bikes, spare bikes are being warmed up. White flag then is waving. At the moment then, you can just see there as Bagnaia goes through turn 7. It just looks like it's getting a little bit darker over at the back end of the circuit. 0.6 of a second was the gap, sorry, between Bagnaia and Martin as we started this lap 10.
Yeah, they wouldn't have waved that white flag unless they had information from a marshal out there that it is raining. That's only the point where that rule comes into play. You don't have the white flag, you're not allowed to change bikes in a full dry race, only when rain starts to fall. At the moment, it's not slacking off the lap times at all as Bagnaia and Martin continue to match each other for pace. And surely, if you're Jorge Martin, you just do whatever Pecco Bagnaia does if this rain gets heavier.
That's exactly what he's going to do. He made that massive mistake in Misano, didn't he, where he swept into pit lane. As Marc Marquez said, in Misano when it's raining, you follow the locals. And this time around, trust us, mark our words. If Pecco Bagnaia comes into pit lane, Jorge Martin will follow him straight in. There is no way on planet Earth that Martin will do anything different to what Bagnaia will do in this Grand Prix. Let's hope that it does remain dry. Out of turn 2, Bagnaia powers the factory Ducati. We're coming up to the halfway stage here in Japan. The lead just over 0.7 of a second, 44.8 from Bagnaia, 44.9 on the previous lap. Martin has no concerns, no worries about the 93 threatening that second place at the moment. Marquez is a long, long way back, 2.6 seconds behind Martin. At the moment, Marquez struggling to get himself back in those 44s.
Bastianini through on Binder then for 4th place and straight down into a low 1:45. Binder did a 46.1 last time around as he now slips back into what you imagine, subject to any flag-to-flag shenanigans later on, might be quite a lonely 5th place for the South African. But that's an important point, isn't it, that the lap times are still holding very steady in the 1:44s, certainly for Bagnaia and Martin. So if there are any spots hitting their visor at the moment, it's not slowing them down.
Up towards the top end of the circuit, the hairpin curve. Turn 10, all the way down to bottom gear, first gear, 70 kilometres an hour, and then you start winding up through those seamless shift gearboxes, up 5 gears, top gear, full throttle, 315 kilometres down the appropriately named downhill straight, because it really does drop off the edge of the cliff. Into turn 11 we go. Advantage Bagnaia, just keeping Martin at arm's length, isn't he? That gap just hovering around 0.7 to 0.8 of a second. Through the victory corner we go, where Pedro Acosta saw his hopes disappear when he crashed out early on out of 2nd place.
None of the KTMs, or neither of the 2 KTMs left in this race, have much pace at the moment. Bindo having lost that place to Bastianini back in the 46s. Let's see what his lap time is this around. Yeah, 46 flat for Brad Binder. He's the second a lap off the pace. Jack Miller was also doing 46s last time around. That's why he's now behind Morbidelli and Motegi. So neither of the 2 factory KTMs in this race at the moment have any pace at all.
What about a battle of the Frenchmen and a battle for top honours in terms of the Japanese manufacturers here in the Grand Prix of Japan? At the moment, Fabio Quartararo in 12th place, already 16 seconds behind the race leader. We're only on lap 12, so the Yamaha and the Hondas over a second a lap off the pace here. Taka Nakagami at the moment, well, his farewell to a full-time Grand Prix career in Japan will finish with a point scoring place. At the moment, he sits in 15th. He's closing in, though, on Raul Fernandez on the Trackhouse Racing Aprilia. Now, the yellow flag's right.
Vinales is down.
Maverick Vinales has gone down. I had a quick look at the left-hand corner of our screens to see if Bagnaia and Martin are still upright and on 2 wheels. But Maverick Vinales is at turn 5. Yep. On the brakes, Vinales goes. And just spinning out from underneath him goes the factory Aprilia. That's not what Vinales came for. Front row on Saturday morning. Scant reward with 1 point for ninth in the sprint yesterday, and it's now a DNF in the main Grand Prix on Sunday for Top Gun.
Yeah, weekend that promised so much has ultimately not amounted to very much at all beyond that one World Championship point he secured yesterday. Bagnaia just edging away a bit now once again from Jorge Martin as we now tick over half race distance in this Grand Prix. Bagnaia still in the 149s. 45.0 for Jorge Martin, which is hardly slow, but Bagnaia was just keeping his World Championship rival at arm's length here.
And it would, the gap come down to 10 points. This will feel like it's been a big week. Very much going the way of Bagnaia, who's on course here to have taken 14 points out of Martin in the space of 7 days. You have to say, though, Martin is doing a phenomenal job here at damage limitation. 4th from 11th in the sprint, and potentially 2nd from 11th in the sprint. It could get better, of course, for the Martinator, but I think if you'd have said to him when he was chewing a face full of gravel at turn 9 in Q2 yesterday, 4th row, you'll have a 4th and potentially a 2nd, he would have said thank you very much.
Brad Binder has upped his pace a little bit after that poor couple of laps where he was in the 46s, back down to a 45.8, so he's matching now the pace of Morbidelli and Motegi, who are behind him on the racetrack. He's got a 3-second buffer over the Italian pair, so if he can keep his pace where it is at the moment, he should be safe enough in 5th place. His teammate, though, Jack Miller, is continuing to fall back down the order. He lost 8th place to Fabio Di Gianantonio on the last lap, and he's now under pressure from Aleix Espargaro.
Yeah, a whole clutch of riders doing 146s, which just shows the brilliant pace of your race leader Bagnaia, who's keeping himself in the 44s and keeping himself comfortably clear at the front of this Japanese Grand Prix. It's all a little bit spread out at the moment. Hasn't been the classic we were hoping for. Of course, not helped after Pedro Acosta's early bath. But Bastianini, we've got 1 second between Bagnaia and Martin, 2.8 then back to Marquez. Big gap then also back to the beast. Bagnaia, phenomenal, still in the 144s. Another couple of tenths quicker than Martin on that previous lap.
Yeah, the battle which might soon start to boil up is the battle for 3rd place between Marc Marquez and Enea Bastianini. You saw the progression on the bottom of your screens a moment ago. That gap is continuing to come down. Bastianini took another 1/4 of a second out of Marc Marquez for the first time since he cleared Brad Binder. Bastianini is now within 2 seconds of the 93, and if you can see on the left-hand side of your screens, it looks like it's come down even more. It's down to 1.2 seconds now through the first sector. Something's happened to Marc Marquez in the first sector because he's lost 7/10 to the beast.
Yeah, he's made a mistake on the brakes then into the first corner. We're going to see a replay of it now. Drops at the right leg, trying to get that Ducati stable, but unfortunately he goes off to the car park here, close to the nearby Motegi Hotel. He was the apex of the first corner, and that will certainly keep Bastianini interested. Back at the front, still the gap between Bagnaia and Martin. Well, it's just crept up to 1.4 seconds. Everything that Martin tries to do is immediately matched or bettered, isn't it, by Bagnaia. Not much between the two of them, but at the moment, very much in the ascendancy once again is Bagnaia.
I think we're going to start to rub our hands together in the commentary box here, because we might be set for a rematch of what we saw yesterday. Probably the most entertaining battle we saw in the Tissot sprint yesterday was between Marquez and Bastianini. That one was for 2nd place yesterday behind Pecco Bagnaia, and it's a measure of the job Jorge Martin has done today, that he's 4 seconds up the road from this pair. Marquez yesterday was the attacker rather than the defender against Enea Bastianini. Role reversal potentially coming up today.
He's got it all on, hasn't he, to hold off the beast, who has 10 laps to try and get himself onto the podium, to try and make amends for the big blunder when he was charging towards Acosta and Martin 7 days ago in Mandalika. Maybe this time around he'll just try and attack in that 3rd place with a little bit more margin after a crash in Mandalika, which you feel put the final nail in his championship aspirations.
Personal best last time around too for Frankie Morbidelli in 6th place. He's not giving up on chasing down Brad Binder yet. Pedro Acosta has given up on any hope of salvaging anything from today. Of course, with the race now starting to edge towards 2/3 distance, and a red flag now would not save Pedro Acosta, and a rather forlorn Moto2 world champion. No points to show from his weekend, having shown so much.
That is a bitter, bitter pill to swallow, isn't it, for Pedro Acosta? pole position, KTM's first in 4 years, third youngest pole setter in Premier Class history. I don't think anybody envisaged after that would come a double DNF for the rookie start, crashing out the lead in the sprint and crashing out of second place early on as he was hot in pursuit of the world champion Bagnaia. Just look at that, scrubbing off over 200 kilometers an hour, hard on the front tyre. That's why everybody has to run that Michelin hard compound front tyre, just to get the braking stability, just to deal with the temperature and the forces that are generated through that front tyre down into the 90-degree corner. Out of the victory corner goes Pecco Bagnaia. He's finally back in the 145s, but still, once again, just takes a tenth or two out of Martin. The gap now just under 1.6 seconds. These two are miles clear of anybody else. Marc Marquez 6 seconds further back. Marquez and Bastianini exchange 145.3. So Marquez has regrouped after his big mistake at turn 1 on the previous lap. So he's just holding the beast back by 8/10.
We often show you race pace graphics with the lap chart of all the different lap times the riders set through the Grand Prix. I quite look forward to seeing one of those for Pecco Bagnaia in this race. I don't think he's ever been outside of a sort of 3/4 of a second range from a 44.8 to a 45.1. Right on cue, here it comes. A 44.5, his personal best on lap 4, and then look at that, from lap 5 onwards, his fastest lap of 44.8, and his slowest, which was on the previous lap, a 45.1. That's what world champion race pace looks like.
Well, if only he had the consistency to match the speed, that Pecco Bagnaia, that is astonishing, isn't it? 44.8, 44.8, 44.9, 44.9, 45 flat. That is metronomic pace, isn't it, from Pecco Bagnaia. As the sun starts poking through the clouds here in Motegi, let's hope that all we have is sunshine here and not any more rain spots to hinder these last 8 and a bit laps here in Motegi, as Martin fighting a good fight, but at the moment just cannot get on par, can he, with Bagnaia. Bagnaia doing what he has to do. Just make sure he keeps taking the points, keeping the pressure on Martin at the top of the World Championship. We'll head to Phillip Island in Australia as it stays as is, with the gap down to just 10.
Yeah, I think if you asked Jorge Martin yesterday morning, tell him you can get out of Japan this weekend with your championship lead still at 10 points. I think he might have taken that, having started from 11th on the grid. There's been some recovery from the World Championship leader. This is Jack Miller, whose race has kind of gone in the other direction after what was an incredible start, arguably a better first lap than Martin had, from Miller to come from 14th up into 5th at one stage, but he started to regress back down the order now, and Alicia Spargo is looking to take away that 9th place. Last time around, Miller was doing a 46.6, which is a second and a half off race leading pace.
Quickest rider on circuit now is Marc Marquez in 3rd. He's got the hurry up, he's got the message and the signal that Bastianini was closing in on him, and he's thinking, no, I'm not losing a double podium here in Motegi. 145.203 was just a little bit quicker than Bagnaia. So Marquez is finding some great late race pace as he keeps the beast at bay for the time being.
Could be some problems still yet for the other factory KTM. Of course, we're looking at the battle involving Jack Miller, or we were. Marco Motegi and Fabio Gianantonio are now on our screens, who are battling for 7th and all VR46 battle, but Binder's not got 5th place safe just yet. He's doing 45.8. Fonca Morbidelli is catching at around about 2/3 a lap, and with 7.5 still to go, it could be close towards the end of the race for the 21 to potentially secure an all Ducati top 5 in this one.
Alicia Spargo just in a little bit wide there on the factory Aprilia as he powers out of turn 10. You can just see Bagnaia's lead. It's creeping up once again. It was 1.6 at the start of this lap. It's now up to 1.8 seconds. 145.4 as opposed to a 145.6 from Martin. The two faster riders behind our lead two are Marquez and Bastianini, who are setting us all up for another grandstand finish here in the battle of a 3rd place. Marquez a 145.3, bettered by Bastianini, who got down to a 145.1. The gap now between those two just 0.6 of a second.
Bastianini will just be hoping under his crash helmet that that rear tyre of Marc Marquez does start to drop. It's generally an area where Bastianini is usually in quite good shape late on. Here is the battle for 3rd place, and Bastianini, as you say, is now the fastest rider on circuit, doing 145.4. ones. Marc Marquez is going to need every ounce of grip from that medium Michelin tyre in the final 6.5 laps if he's to hold on to this podium.
Yeah, and that will feel like an awful long 6.5 laps for Marc Marquez, because, well, he's known as the up and down pit lane as the tyre whisperer. Nea Bastianini is so smooth, so gentle with that right hand at managing the grip. This is the phase of Grand Prix traditionally where Nea comes into his own. Further down, let's have a quick check on Taka Nakagami, 13th place. He's up to now, of course, help with the Vinales and Acosta retirements, but hopefully points on offer for Taka in front of his home crowd.
Binder's got problems, by the way, behind this in that battle for fifth. He's lost over half a second on this lap to Frankie Morbidelli. For the first time, that lead that Binder has for fifth is under a second. In fact, it's been cut in half already on this lap. 1.5 at the start of the lap. Morbidelli now within 8/10 of Brad Binder. A battle for fifth is also about to commence shortly.
Bagnaia already starting his 19th lap of 24. Martin has nicked a bit of time back on the number one, a 1:45.4 from the Spanish rider, has reduced the gap back down to 1.5 seconds. Once again, guess who's the quickest of the lead quartet? It's Bastianini on the number 23 factory Ducati. The top four riders in the World Championship, once again, the top four star performers in this Japanese Grand Prix. A little bit more strung out than we were hoping for between our top quartet, which is still being led by Bagnaia.
The World Championship will still very much roll on for another couple of weeks to Australia, with just 10 points between the top two. If it finishes as it is at the moment, we are still in that kind of phase of the season, though, where one mistake could still make such a difference. So far this afternoon, Pecco Bagnaia has made none at all, and Jorge Martin must feel surely under his crash limit at the moment. He must know at this stage that he's not got the pace to chase down Pecco Bagnaia. It's all about making sure he doesn't make mistakes now and take what would be 20 very useful points.
Oh, you've gone and done it again, haven't you? You've done the commentator's curse. You spoke in glowing terms yesterday about Pedro Acosta not putting a foot wrong, and about 2 corners later, Acosta crashed out of the lead at turn 7
Sorry,
in
Pedro.
the sprint. Yeah, apologies to Pedro Acosta. Let's hope the commentator's curse...
Apparently I wasn't the only one as well.
yeah. Let's hope that the commentator's curse doesn't strike Pecco Bagnaia. He's just getting the message, just the team informing him. Can you believe it? Blue sky now starts to emerge. We're having to just shut the blinds in our commentary box. First time that's happened all weekend, as we're starting to get him blinded by the sun in the land of the rising sun. Bagnaia over the line. Yeah, that is 2 laps then now that Martin has found half a second compared to Bagnaia. The gap shrinks further to 1.3 seconds, a 45.6 from Bagnaia, better with a 45.3 from Martin. Is this just a bit of stage managing from Bagnaia, just making sure that he's got a bit of grip, of course, with fuel consumption a factor as well? There are change mappings by now. How much has the power been knocked off of those factory Ducatis as well?
We thought yesterday, didn't we, on the final lap, that Bagnaia was perhaps overdoing it a little bit. We did wonder, was he potentially going to throw away a sprint win on the very final lap? He asserted us that he was just managing it, that he knew he had a second that potentially he could lose on the final lap, and used every little bit of that second to win by a 10th in the end from Nea Bastianini. I guess what we'll find out is if Martin gets to within a second of Bagnaia, does Bagnaia then take the moment to decide to speed up again a little bit? It's holding steady at the moment on this lap. The lead remains around 1.3 seconds as Brad Binder's grip on 5th place might finally be loosened here by Frankie Morbidelli, who has now caught the KTM.
Well, we're in the home of sumo wrestling at the moment. Marc Marquez's fight for 3rd place is absolutely brilliant. A 1:45.1 was Marquez's lap time, as Morbidelli charges in too hot on the brakes into turn 10. Marquez, a 1:45.1 on that lap 19, was half a second quicker than Bagnaia, and it just looks like he's trying to break the beast here late on. 1.1 seconds the gap now over line. So 4 laps to go. Now I'm sure Pecco Bagnaia, if he keeps control of this Grand Prix will tell us just afterwards. Well, it was all under control. As long as I could just see the gap was over a second, I knew that Martin was not going to come and give me any late worries, any late headaches, but it's just certainly keeping our attention here in the commentary box, and I'm sure you watching at home as well.
And keeping Davide Tardozzi very much on the edge of his seat. Here he is now. He certainly doesn't look like a team manager who's comfortable and confident that victory is secured just yet. Bagnaia can afford to lose a couple of tenths per lap from here with just 4 to go. He would still have enough to hold Jorge Martin at bay, but I guess you don't want to give the World Championship leader too much encouragement if you can help it. Further back, Bastianini pulled a couple of tenths back on Marc Marquez last time around, but Marquez in many respects is doing what Bagnaia is doing, just keeping Bastianini at arm's length and not giving him a sniff of that position. It's first for Bagnaia, third at the moment that Bastianini's chasing.
Just over a second remains the gap between Bagnaia and Martin through turn 9. The crash there in qualifying yesterday was the reason why Martin found himself mired back on the 4th row of the grid. Into the sunshine we go. The shadows being cast here in Motegi at turn 10. It is now under a second. 3 and a little bit more laps remaining, and Jorge Martin's eyes are lighting up, aren't they, under that dark visor as he charges down the hill into the 90-degree corner. The victory corner coming up shortly. Is there an unlikely victory beckoning here for the Martinator?
Well, the team surely now will be giving Bagnaia, if he's not aware already, of the gap to Jorge Martin. You'll see it on his pit board as he comes across the line now with 3 to go. Bagnaia's still doing 45.3s. It's Martin who's speeding up. He's just at a 45.0 with 3 laps still to go in this race. So the gap is now 9/10 of a second. And if Bagnaia does have any extra pace up his sleeve, now's the time to find it.
45 flat on a 21 lap set old tyres. That is some astonishing pace, isn't it, by Martin. Has he got the late race speed? Can he find a way? Well, he's got to find a way, one, to get on par with Bagnaia, and then find a way to try and attack and get through on the Italian. He's going all in though, isn't he? Look how hard Martin was pushing that front end of that Prima Ducati into turn 5.
Well, he said yesterday, didn't he, when the rain was starting to fall, he just really took a knock to his confidence, Jorge Martin. Well, with the sun now shining above our heads at the Mobility Resort Motegi, nothing wrong with the confidence of the World Championship leader now, and if he can catch up past Bagnaia in the final 3 laps, what a body blow this would deal in the battle for the World Championship.
Well, he's doing all he can, and that is just to keep Bagnaia's mind occupied, let him see his pit board over the line. That plus 0.889, yeah, on the dashboard goes the message. Less than 2.5 laps remaining here in Motegi. Is this boiling up to a thrilling finale here, or is this just Bagnaia in complete control of the situation? Only he knows, inside that special autumn helmet here in the autumn sunshine of Motegi. Through the final corner, Bagnaia will go now. Just over 2 laps remaining, just under 10 kilometres remaining, as there is a 10-point gap at the moment splitting the top 2 in the championship.
Bagnaia does respond as we thought he might. As that gap came under a second, Bagnaia said, OK, that's close enough for me, I'm going to speed up a bit again. And the lead now goes back out to over 1 second. That's the first lap for around 5 or 6, isn't it? That Martin has been slower than Bagnaia. As far as the other Pramac Ducati is concerned, we told you of Morbidelli chasing Brad Binder. He has now passed him for 5th place.
That's cool, isn't it? Yeah. That's clinical from Bagnaia. Just happy to let Martin come within striking distance and then just respond, and respond with kind, because he's now got that advantage back to over a second. Let's just check that as they come through the second sector, halfway around this second to last lap. Has Bagnaia broken Martin? I think he has. Bagnaia has upped his pace. 1.4 seconds now is the gap, and surely now it's the time for Martin to lock and load and lock down for 20 important points for the championship.
For Marc Marquez in 3rd place, this is really the battle for third place, not just in the race, but probably in the World Championship too. They're 5 points apart in the advantage of Bastianini. If Marc Marquez can hold on to this, he would gain 3 points back on the beast. And what Marc Marquez is doing so well here is he's just, much like Bagnaia at the front, he's just keeping that gap big enough that Bastianini's in no position to really launch a last lap raid on the 93. This is the closest battle we're going to have, I think, on this final lap of the race, and certainly now that Morbidelli has cleared Brad Binder. And Marc Marquez, who's had some last lap battles over the years with factory Ducatis here at the Motegi circuit, he does not want another one.
Yeah, Honda's home crowd hero, showing Honda exactly what they're missing. He's had a whole bunch of podiums for HRC here, on course for his first in Japan on board the Ducati. Bagnaia, a 1:45.5 on lap 23, and I think Jorge Martin has had a look over his shoulder, seen the massive gap back to Marquez, and he's decided that's it. He's a 1:46.1, which is by far Martin's slowest lap of this Grand Prix. He's in safety mode now. He's just bringing that bike home to second place, limiting the damage. He pushed Bagnaia hard, and Bagnaia did not crack. And the championship, which has been littered with mistakes, as Bagnaia himself said, he hasn't blinked, he has not made a mistake yet in this Japanese Grand Prix. Yeah. Don't think we're going to see one coming.
Well, he forced one out of Pedro Acosta in the very early stages. Of course, this was the day that Pedro Acosta hoped was going to lead to a first Motogp win. That will have to wait for at least another fortnight, and it's a measure of the level that Pecco Bagnaia is at, and also the level that Martin is at, to keep himself in the lead of the championship. Of course, Bagnaia has now taken more sprint wins this season than Martin, and he's now 3 or 4 corners away from a record for him, 8th win of the 2024 season. He's never taken more than 7. He took 7 wins in each of his 2 previous title seasons. He's 1 sector away from win number 8.
Best winning season in MotoGP in 5 long years. Last time we saw a rider win 8 wins in a season, well, that was Marc Marquez in that glorious charge to the championship in 2019. It's game on in this year's Motogp World Championship. The gap shrinks to just 10 points as through the victory corner here in Japan, it has been a Motegi masterclass from reigning world champion Pecco Bagnaia. He led the Japanese Grand Prix from start to finish. He resisted the early pressure from Pedro Acosta. He withstood the late pressure from Jorge Martin, and he takes the checker flag by 1.1 seconds ahead of the Spaniard. Bagnaia then wins for the 8th time in 2024, a season best winning tally for him. Marc Marquez does fend off Enea Bastianini for 3rd place. Morbidelli and Binder inside the top 6. Taka Nakagami with the big wheelie over the finish line as he says farewell and goodbye, sayonara to the Japanese fans. Nakagami takes the checker flag in 13th place. There were top 10s for Bezzecchi, the Gian Antonio, Aleix Espargo and Jack Miller. Johan Zarco on the very last lap won the battle of the French riders. He got Fabio Quartararo on the last lap to take 11th place. Quartararo 12th. Points as well behind Nakagami for Marini and Raul Fernandez. But Pecco Bagnaia takes the victory here in Motegi. It's his first Motegi MotoGP success, and he certainly needed it. 10 points then now is the gap between Martin and Bagnaia. 4 races remaining, the first of our 2 season-defining triple headers complete. We have a week's break before we resume in Phillip Island, Thailand, Malaysia and Valencia to follow. And there is nothing to split Martin and Bagnaia at the top of the championship. That was the master plan working perfectly in Motegi for the reigning world champion.
He was too good in the end, wasn't he? I guess we'll never know whether Jorge Martin could have taken the fight to Bagnaia had he started near him on the grid. Let's get some reaction with Simon, who's with Gigi D'Alino.
I am Gigi. Please give us your thoughts.
These are 2 champions, and you know, it's difficult to predict who will win at the end of the year. But anyway, good. It's a real show. It's a beautiful show, and you know, I'm really proud that for the team and